Okay, this is Anasazi, and how old are you?
I'm 9 years old.
9 years old, okay, and last week in our private lesson we do guitar and songwriting, right? We had a conversation and started rabbit trailing, alright? Sometimes we do that when we're a little ADD, right?
Yeah.
And we started talking about art, and specifically it started with music, and then it started turning into how different art forms have very similar relationships. Like, what were some examples that we talked about?
We talked about emotions, and so when we talk about the emotions, sorry, we talk about the emotions and how we would draw them. And I said that if I drew, I would draw a person, but I would just draw a smiley face for each one, but use the colors that express the emotions that we're talking about.
And where that came from is when we were saying specifically chord qualities, we were learning about major and minor chords, and then those in between, like suspended or diminished or something like that. Of how a major chord is simply put is it's expressing something, it sounds happy, simply put. A minor chord sounds kind of sad. So we said, okay, now let's use those emotions because it has an emotional quality to the chord. What are some emotions if you were a painter and saying, all right, immediately what comes to mind, Anna, when you're going, you're gonna now change art forms to something different but express the same emotion, something happy, what would you think of?
If I was happy, I would think of the colors. Yellow, light green, maybe a light blue, maybe a darker green. But what I would do is if I was sculpting and trying to show my emotions, I wouldn't sculpt the person. I would sculpt like, kind of like my smiley face thing, but I would sculpt like maybe just a big triangle, and then I would put all the colors of the emotions, or like happy at the top, sad in the middle, or like any other emotion on the bottom. Like
nice. And then would that be like a three-dimensional sculpture or just like one?
Three-dimensional, because
cool.
then it would go all the way around and it would look like pretty much really cool.
Absolutely.
And that way I wouldn't have to only choose one color, because then that would be the main color, but still I don't want to choose one color. I want to express all the colors I can share about that one emotion.
Now can you see the sculpture being like a pyramid where it's got edges, or what about like a cone where it's circular and wide?
I would say it would be a pyramid, because it's kind of like this cube, because when you can put it on the bottom, like you can put it on all the sides. Instead of a cone, it's a circular bottom, and it's harder to do stuff on that or draw stuff.
Right. So speaking of three-dimensional expressions of art, our very interesting and kind of long conversation short turned into a project that you were going to work on based on our conversation. It was just something we were going to experiment with, because we had this really cool conversation about art and going, hey, what would it look like to combine now not just art, different forms of art, but even other kinds of ways to study, and what were all the different layers that are going into this little box that we're going to talk about?
Well,
we combine what?
We combine math, art, music.
Well, what kind of art?
Well, art, we did drawing, a little bit of sculpting, coloring, and that's pretty much it. And that's an art, and the other art type we did was music.
We're going to compose a piece based on this?
Yeah. In math, it's a cube, so it also makes sense. And because it's also math, because if you try and count how many Titanics are on this, it's going to be really hard.
But real quick, so there was another layer that you talked about. You said the Titanic. Where did this, before you explain this, where did the idea of Titanic come from? There was another layer of it.
History.
You put history in there. So what did you choose?
I chose the Titanic because I couldn't think of science thing. It's kind of hard because science.
We talked about maybe mixing oceanography in there too.
So I figured, since history is history and the Titanic is historic, so and it was in the ocean found, so I figured it's pretty much scientifically oceanography too. So
let's take a journey through your story in this cube and explain each little area and why.
I've read a book about the Titanic, and this is the first part.
You can look at that. Okay.
And there is a little, this is when the Titanic was sailing off. I actually had difficulties with this cube. We made it a cube, obviously. You can see that. And we spray painted it black because we thought it would be okay to draw on it, but it didn't show up. So we had to do this. You see, I didn't know we had to cut this yet, so I drew a whole dock with like a lot of people, and so I had to fit it on the cube. I had to cut off all the people over here and just leave this one person right there. In the Titanic, what I did is on most of them is I read a book like that again.
Is that where it starts?
Yeah, this is where it starts.
Okay.
And see these, I knew how to draw it because I've seen it in pictures. I tried to make it big enough, and what I did on most all of these is I overlapped it. If you see right here, it's not the finish of the ship because I read that the ship was very big. So it's not the finish on the ship, it can't finish. So that's why I did this on most of the pictures.
So where's the second part?
This is the second part.
Nice. Explain that.
They're all dancing and having fun together, and then they're just enjoying the time.
I see some music notes in there too.
Yeah, those are like representing the music blasting
Cool.
out.
All right, the next part.
This is the next part, yes. Okay, this is where the Titanic is sailing out at night, and a girl on the ship is surprised because she sees a gigantic iceberg. And then,
Next part.
yeah, next part. You see, I think it shows it backwards, but this is the part where everyone is the captains and the drivers of the ship are getting all worried. You know, I didn't know if they had. I've never actually seen the inside of the ship, obviously, so I did not know. But I tried to make it look as realistic as I could. I don't know if they had computers back then, but I don't.
Why not?
Yeah.
Probably not.
Yeah.
But it looks cool.
Yeah.
Why not? No one was ever gonna know.
Yep. So this guy's saying SOS, and this girl is saying everyone on bottom deck evacuate. You can't see it in this because it's backwards.
Sure.
But over here is like right there is the emergency. So it was like right there. See, I drew this one and I wanted to write emergency button like right there.
Right.
But I didn't have enough room, so I decided I'd go over here and do a big button that says emergency.
Cool. All right. What's next?
And then, what was that the last verse? This one. Okay. So this is after the hole is in the ship. It's right there. Right there. And I should have drawn more people, but I didn't. And this girl is on the ship and she's looking down at the hole and she's like, I'm gonna die. And so that is what I'm hoping to be the chorus. And
cool.
then this is the end.
Oh no.
So I read in the book, I thought the whole thing just sank, but it turns out half the ship sank. So it would be like floating, and then half the ship would go like this and break off, and then the other part of the ship would sink. Yeah, and there, I drew a person in the water right there, and then I drew a person on the ship right there crying, and I drew people here crying on a rowboat.
Oh no.
Because they're all sad and like they're all scared.
And that's probably what happened historically, right?
Yeah.
Is that the last one?
Yeah, it's the last one.
Okay, so now let's talk about, so this is really cool. First of all, as far as, before we talk about the music, would you, if you were to do this again, would you express this physical part of the art differently? How and why?
I would express it differently by using more emotion in them. Like,
what does that mean? Well, would you represent it in a physical way differently? Or would you do the exact same thing? You paint it black and put paper on it, or would you do it differently?
I would not paint it black. I have learned my lesson.
So what would you do differently? How would you express the same thing differently?
I would do the same thing. Maybe I would make it somewhat different so you wouldn't have to. What I did was I started off with the intro, like I showed you, and you go like this, and then you go like this, and then you go like this. It's a bit confusing if you ask me, because you have to remember which way to go. But I would have done that differently. I would have had more people on the ship. Like here, I would have had more people. Over here, like there.
Cool.
Same with here. Same here. Not here because this is the inside of the ship.
Okay.
And I only wanted to have 2 captains because that's what I read in the book.
Right. Now, what about? Would you still use cardboard, and would you draw it differently, or would you paste paper on there?
I would have used cardboard again, but I would not have spray painted it black. And I would have, that way I could draw on it, because when you spray paint it black, you won't be able to draw on it.
Cool.
So, and for this, I would add a way more people, trust me.
Yeah.
I would add like
There's a lot of people
here
on the ship.
people and a lot of people under here. Over here, I would add like not millions of people, more people here because they would be alarmed. What I'm thinking here is I actually would have changed this. I would have shown her right there getting all worried, and I would have shown other people running down to tell them what's going on.
Got it.
I think that's what I would change on that one because it's important. I mean, how would they know yet?
Right.
Because they see the iceberg. Well, not them. They see the iceberg before, obviously, the captain sees it before it hits the ship. So that's what I think I should have done.
Or you'd physically do it. That's great. So do you imagine you're gonna give an updated version of this?
Yeah.
Cool. Now, if we're talking about music, now we talked about the next layer of art is we're gonna add music to each one of these. There's 6 kind of story blocks, and I asked you earlier. I said, how come you didn't do like a comic book, like a sheet of paper? Because you could have done the same thing and put those sheets on a big poster board. But I asked you, I said, first of all, how come the 3-dimensional expression of that versus just seeing it on a big cardboard?
It just wouldn't look as good because if you had one piece of cardboard, you'd have to make it like,
all those different 6 blocks would just look like a big comic book, which is one way to express it, but you expressed it in a 3-dimensional way. Why is that?
Because if I did it in a 2-dimensional way with just one piece of cardboard, one, the Titanic is ginormous, obviously. And that wouldn't be good because I'd have to make it about like this big to fit on the little square.
So you like it that you gotta rotate through it.
Yeah, and I also like how it is because if it's just 2-dimensional, it really wouldn't be math.
Yeah. So you chose, that's really cool. So because we said let's put a math layer in there, you chose the 3D image so that it represented math. I think that's really great and very creative.
And like I said, the Titanic, if you count how many, is math.
Right. And earlier we talked about, hey, what if someone said to you, math isn't creative or math isn't art? Well, here we've got layers of history, art, different forms of art, and then math, and now, music, and literature, and all these other things integrated in one thing. So this collectively, this one thing has a lot of depth to it. So what about music? Let's talk about the music. How would you represent each one? And we're going to experiment with this, obviously, of each part of these music bits in the fastest way you possibly can.
But I think this will be the intro. This will be the verse 1, verse 2, verse 3, chorus.
Chorus, because that's the most climactical part of the story.
And then the ending,
right? So do you imagine your song structure or your piece to kind of almost go with the way the story is? You've got like maybe a nice soft entry. Think about the Titanic. Everyone's all excited and they're happy to be on this really wonderful ship. It's never gonna sink. All these other things. And then something changes. So musically, think about chord qualities, minor and major chords, and all those other things. How could we express this whole entire story so from start to finish in a way that it's congruent with your thoughts?
What I would do is right here on the intro, it would kind of mix it up because some people are sad because they're like, oh, I wish I could have gone. Or some people are happy.
Well, the ones on the boat are really happy, right?
Yeah. So I think I combine both minor and major for the intro. But for here, I would do mostly major. Mostly major, because everyone's happy and they're on the boat by themselves and they're all happy.
Eating food.
And then right here, right here, it would be more like
Big change.
yeah, big change. It'd be like scared and running and
Real
like
agitated music.
It's kind of like what I'm thinking of is kind of like that da da da
Yeah.
da thing, but it's gonna be different because I don't like that very much. Because if you do that for this, it's not even happening yet.
Yeah.
You just see
Nobody
the
really
iceberg
knows.
right here, and they're
Maybe
like,
what about some suspended chords?
yeah,
Because the feeling is suspended because we don't have anything definitive yet. Like we know something's different, but we don't know what it is yet. Just like we don't know if it's major or minor, so that maybe we can some suspended chords could be.
and the thing is, they're not that scared because they know that they think that it's indestructible,
Right.
so they're not too scared.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, they are still pretty scared, like it shows. She's
Right.
like freaking out.
Right. Some people get it earlier than others, right?
Mhm.
So let me carry on. How would we express the rest of it musically?
This would be major scary because
Minor?
no, major slash minor, because major to me is more scary. If you make it more of an attack and you make it like a C, it'll be like scarier. Or if you and maybe a little bit of minor, it'll still be scary.
Okay.
But that's what I want for these this SOS thing.
Okay, cool.
But what I want for the chorus is to be all minor
Mhm.
because it shows that they're like,
Something really sad is happening.
and they can tell because there's a huge hole in the Titanic.
Mm-hmm.
They're obviously gonna like freak out and get scared.
Mm-hmm. And what about even like a diminished chord going backwards? What about like a diminished chord before it gets to the chorus to kind of say, because diminished has this agitated feel, but it's also pushing to something.
What I
Right.
think we should do is, you know how you slide?
Mhm.
We should do that between the third verse and the chorus,
Mhm.
because that'll be like the scraping sound of
The iceberg.
the iceberg
Oh,
hitting
that's
you.
cool.
That's what I thought.
It's got some actual natural qualities using the instruments to do that. I think that's genius.
So then,
So after the chorus, then what? We have an ending.
ending, very, very, very sad. You want to make it as sad as possible.
But it
because-
Now, do you see that maybe? Sorry to interrupt you. I'm with you. I'm
It's
with you.
okay.
Now. What about? We already had this is sad, but it's getting sadder. But then all of a sudden, with people in the water and things like that, it kind of evens out, doesn't
Mhm.
it? Right? So it kind of leaves you like.
What I'm thinking is these people are glad they're off, yet they're very sad for the other people. So like what I do is I would make,
Would you express both of those emotions of both people?
yes, the first verse, if we add like lyrics, I'll be like, and this person is feeling, and then just do the chords, and then I'll be like, and these people are feeling, and then do the good chords. And then I think this person, for like the person out in the water, I'd be like, and these people are going, "Ugh." Like on the guitar I can do that because
Yeah.
it's like you hold a fret on the last E string and then go like, and then it'll be like,
Shake it.
yeah, shake it with your like finger, whatever finger
Right.
you're doing it. So it's like,
'Cause they're freezing.
Like it's kind of like,
Yeah. Right.
because this is freezing water.
Right. Right.
So that's what I'm thinking about.
I think that's a really, I can kind of see all that. So the next step is we're going to update this video and the viewers, whoever that's going to be, of what's going to become of this. That's what I'm interested in seeing is the stages of going, we're trying stuff out, we're going to try to now mesh the music. This is very clear of where we're going with this. We started with this, and we could have done the opposite, right? We could have started with a piece of music and then expressed it afterwards.
Yeah.
But we're starting with this little box, this three-dimensional art expression of our conversation of trying to combine different forms of education. And then we're gonna try the guitar. We've got piano. We've got some other instruments that we can use to figure out ways to do this, and hopefully we'll get a recording of this masterpiece.
What I wanted to add earlier is, this I figured out of language arts because one, there is writing on this, and I tried to make it as neat as possible.
Like literature.
And two, it's history, which it can be language arts because it happened here or somewhere else. And that is also part of language arts because you learn even in language arts, you learn about places. You learn
Right.
how to write them. You learn how to memorize them.
Mhm.
So this is also language arts.
Absolutely.
I never.
There's a lot of things going on.
Yeah, it took me a long time to realize it, but I realized by myself I should add language arts to it because we didn't talk about it. But I figured,
Kinda
we have
happened.
math, we have science, we have history, but we're missing one thing: language arts.
Right. And that's what it needed, and you found it out as you were doing it. That's cool. You excited about it?
Oh yeah.
Have you come up with a name for this yet, or are you still thinking about it? Who needs it? We'll
Um,
name it later.
yeah, I'd probably call it the sad story.
The sad story? And we'll see if that evolves too.
Yep.
Cool. Until then, signing off with Anna and Corey. Bye.
Bye.